Wow. See, this is why we need Ricky. I muted this thing just in the off chance that Katarina were to talk to me while we were doing the intro video. I was like, I'll just mute it just in case. And then I literally sat here and was like, whatever you do, don't forget to unmute. And that's exactly what I did. So
from the top.
Are you calling me a talker?
I wouldn't say that at all. But trying to prepare all of the articles today was very difficult. That being said, we have a full-fledged episode for you. I'm taking it from the top. What do we have in store for you today? We're starting off with how while Hollywood is celebrating the Cannes Music Festival in Cannes, France, there's a little bit of a tragedy down the street at the Marineland Amusement Park. It's like a giant aquarium, like a SeaWorld, that is kind of a prison to quite a tragedy. And I can't wait to open that can of worms. We're going to follow that up with how Joe Biden is healthy and stronger than ever. You haven't seen him so strong, at least if we were following the definition of his presidential administration. Following that up, we're going to close out the episode with how a Japanese manga's comic predicts a catastrophe that has tourists canceling trips to the island nation. That being said, finally, out of his hiatus once again, couldn't be more excited to be joining us in the Pickle Gallery. We got Ricky from Just Another Day TV saving the show. What would we do without you? Always saving us. And then now you're muted.
Now you're muted.
Look at this. We save each other. This is why we're a team.
Yes, sir.
That being said, joining us in the co-chair, very excited to have her, and hopefully she's got a lot packed in the gab. Katarina Brankoff, how are you doing, Katarina?
Hi, I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Excited to peel back these layers of the onion and running the keys. And what would we do without him? Our good friend Will Huber. Will, how's it hanging over in the Doug corner?
Hey, gang. He kept the seat warm for me. What can I say?
No, you're keeping the seat warm for him.
I guess
Katarina is keeping it extra warm for you. All right. That being said, let's kick off the show. If I can do that. Woo-wee, what a doozy. What a start. All right. Today, we're talking about how the French bureaucrats who may have doomed an abandoned aquarium's orcas to die and why red tape leaves them trapped in a hellish existence. This story takes place in Cannes, France. What's super interesting about the timing of this story catching our ears is that just this past week, or really just yesterday, we're getting lost in the glitz and the glam and the flashes of the Canes Music Festival. This music festival brings about, a lot of attention, so much excitement. And this is what, we like to get distracted by. Don't focus on the things that matter. Look over here. We got Tom Cruise on the red carpet. These are the important things. And the thing that's been taking headlines is Denzel Washington. This is the important stuff. So Denzel gets in a little tiff with a paparazzi, a cameraman, because the cameraman, I guess, touched him. He's saying, stop, whatever you, and again, hats off to Denzel Washington. You got to stand up for yourself, draw the line. He does it in a professional way that doesn't create increased violence, but controls the situation. But of course, this is all the headlines. Focus over here. Denzel Washington yelled at a guy. And this is the whole story. Whatever you do, don't look down the road, also taking place in Cannes, France. This terrible story of Marineland. Swimming aimlessly around an abandoned marine park, these majestic orcas appear to be at the center of a bureaucratic row between French officials and a major theme park company. France's last captive killer whales are stranded in an algae-infested Marineland near Cannes, neglected with the exception of a skeleton staff that comes in intermittently to feed them. Terrible. In a nearby smaller tank, 12 stranded bottlenose dolphins are the only other occupants of this park, but their fate is uncertain, with the French government telling Mail Online that it could be a year before they are relocated at the earliest. The marine park closed on January 5th, citing legislation banning shows featuring sea ocean animals such as dolphins and whales, which French government passed in 2021. The law set a deadline of December 26 for Marineland. Man, wow, I'm dyslexic today. For Marineland to part ways with the killer whales. Since then, the management of Marineland have been shuffling through various options for where to rehome these poor animals. Through the Marineland networks and channels, they've closed as a marine zoo business, and they are still legally responsible for the welfare of the animals until they are rehomed. The orcas were both born in captivity, so could never survive in the wild. That, I don't know if I buy that. But again, let's ask the orca. Would you rather be stuck in this thing or have to go against other orcas?
They figure it out.
You're the killer whale. You're gonna run shit in the ocean. So I don't know if I buy that piece. So in closing, the marine park closed January 5th, citing legislation banning shows. And despite this, despairing condition, French authorities have yet to identify a suitable site in Europe for the orcas. As we said, a skeleton staff comes in, feeds the animals, meets with management companies, and tries to their best to meet those legal requirements for their care, but are not providing much in the way of mental enrichment, which is vital for these orcas, which are like significantly more cognizant than a jellyfish. We have scientific specialists saying this is unfavorable for our authoritarianization, which is just a bad word, cannot be granted to transfer these animals to Spain. So again, it's just the red tape that's preventing a swift action, the appropriate action. But how could this ever be considered a livable environment for anything, let alone a harmless animal? And so part of this dialogue, it changes things. Like before, our grandparents couldn't put on a VR set that puts them on a boat with these orcas, right? Or puts them in the ocean swimming with them. And so there was a value to exposing yourself to something that isn't native to your homeland. But people aren't going to these parks anymore. there is an unethical arm to these environments. And as a result, people don't want to go. People don't want to support them. They're falling by the wayside. And the only victim, not the billionaires that got to scrape their money and yeah, the cash cow's dead, but they got theirs. No, it's just the sideshow, the thing that we've been oohing and on over, and we have no recourse for saving them. So the gut-wrenching piece is this, and I'm going to flip it to the room to get their thoughts on it. But I ask, has anybody seen the movie Blackfish? Like the documentary? It's disgusting that this is kind of just the cycle for the animals that get lost in this world, but then also there's a dark road to it all. And we're barely scratching the surface. They're stuck there, they're getting fed. But did you know so much of perfume and like hygiene care is made from whale vomit? And so there's actually a financial incentive to getting these whales sick, getting them then in a pool with all the other whales so they can then get sick, and then prolonging their illness so we can continue to collect. So SeaWorld's not only making money off of your ticket, but they're also making bank off of selling vomit so they can make perfumes. And that's where the bigger money is. So that's the highlight of the true incentive. So that all being said, Canarita, what are your thoughts on this whole tragedy?
I had no idea about that last part. I had no idea that it was used for, different types of products and things like that. Like I was aware of
wait until you find out what they do with like child blood. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they tell you that on the Ellen show. Well, how is Sandra Bullock's skin so baby butt smooth? She goes, it's just fetus blood. Just like, oh, well, let's get to Ellen dancing.
Yeah.
It's just like, what, you're going to brush over that?
That's hilarious. That's so true. Yeah. And it is really sad when like certain standards aren't kept to make sure that these animals have quality of life and good health. It's very sad. I think that's why a lot of people don't really support these things anymore as much as they used to. So hopefully that can improve though.
I appreciate that thought. So we haven't been able to hear his thoughts in a while, so I'm eager to jump into the Pickle Gallery. Ricky, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
That perfume stuff is crazy. I have a lot of colognes, perfumes. It's crazy. But I understand they can't just put them back in the wild. You know what I mean? It's like raising a little home shelter kid and then just throw them out there and just expect them to survive. They ain't going to survive very long.
You don't think so?
No.
A killer whale?
Yeah, it's a killer whale, but it's not a killer whale compared to the ones that's already grown in the jungle. You know what I mean? Grown out there.
The jungle.
Well, in the sea, in the ocean.
Rumble in the jungle.
So I don't think they will survive very long. But they should find some way to not fucking infest the pool of algae they're swimming in, and it should be way better because y'all make this much profit. Y'all can put like at least $1 billion for their lifespan, and it wouldn't even be that high. Put a 10 million to keep them suitable until they die or something, but you can't profit off it no more. Which you made a lot of money.
No, I can agree totally. Will, what do you think of the whole thing?
I'm just disgusted at how dirty that, where that environment that they're currently in. I don't think they've seen much Free Willy, so I think that's a movie they should probably watch. I don't know. It's sad. Like, I've never been a fan of going to zoos or like aquariums. Like when I was a kid, sure, because it was cool. But as I've gotten older, like I don't know, like that whole like bred in captivity thing, kind of like, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. I think that nothing. Unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to be done productively. And I think eventually we're going to hear that these two creatures died in captivity because nothing ended up happening here. So that's really what kind of sucks when you think about it. And just all for the Cannes Film Festival. It's like, it's just overshadowing it and hardly being talked about. I didn't even know about this until like you brought it up as a topic, and knowing that's going on, and it's completely highlighting the celebrity LA culture in France is, very typical of today's standards. So, it's an unfortunate thing, but I'm too cynical to believe that those whales are actually going to see freedom at any point in their lives.
Right. Well, you know how this is how the world works, man. Look over here. Look how beautiful her dress is. Whatever you do, don't think about the black algae tank that we've got, a poor innocent animal trapped in.
Yeah.
This environment, like Will said, here, I'm going to go to like later down. That,
Right there. Yeah.
But again, what do you expect of the skeleton crew?
Yeah.
Like you're expecting the skeleton crew to dive on down there and scrub it? I'll be like, for $12 an hour, I'm tossing this thing some fish because I feel guilty.
Yeah.
And I'm going home.
Not even just feeling guilty. Like I'm sure, like due to the legislation that you mentioned, like they're legally not allowed to.
Yeah, I bet
especially
you.
if like they're trying to get these animals sick for like the profit off of perfume of all things. Like I highly doubt like that's in their quota to like keep the pen clean. You could see the one on the right's clean, but the one the ones in the middle.
Which is funny. That's the show tank, and they can't legally do shows anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like it's good that they have that much like room to like, I don't know, get like movement in, but. Right. And I'm kind of with Ricky. I don't know how.
But like, check out this point. So let's go to this point in the video. They have their little like rooms that they've like just been caged by. This is home, and then this is all they know.
Yep.
All they know is the little hole and the bigger hole, and they get to freely move, and this is freedom to them.
And you know what? I bet you the reason why that one's not as dirty is I bet you at night they close off that pen.
No, you know what I think it is? I think you're looking at, because still, let's go back to that view as I make the point.
Oh,
I think you're still looking at 40 more feet
deeper. You're right. Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, like deep sea fishing, how much that impacts. It's kind of there.
No, you're right.
You just don't see it.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's just so much deeper than the shallow bedroom. That's your bedroom. You're in timeout. This is that's way too shallow for a whale.
And it's like they say, like animals like at zoos bred in captivity, like they have a hard time adjusting to wildlife. So I'm sure there's a reason that they haven't. But again, it says it's the last two captives. So it sounds like there were more animals there, not just orcas, but others that, whatever happened to them, did they, get rid of them like in that way, or did they actually release them to the wild? So, and unfortunately it's just all over, like it's literally in the shadow of Cannes Film Festival, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, okay, I'm not doing this to be a jerk. Cannes Film Festival.
I'm pretty sure it's Cannes.
What's funny about it? Are you sure?
Yeah, Entourage.
An Entourage. Cannes.
Yeah, but I think the French pronunciation is Cannes.
That you could be right in that.
The only reason why I know is
I'm going to throw something back at you. You want to know why it's the Cannes Film Festival? Here's why. One, Cane's chicken.
Okay.
And we're American.
All right. That's fair.
Even more so, this is the croissant thing. When I say croissant, they go, no, it's croissant. When I say hamburger, why do you get to go hamburger? No, bitch, it's a hamburger. Sounds like you're saying hamburger like a French person, and I'm saying Cannes Music Festival like a gosh darn American. China.
Yeah, I just know from Entourage. I remember like Johnny Drama said Canes, and he was like Cannes. And they were like, really? He's like, no, it's Cannes. That's the only reason I would know. I would continue saying Canes.
Hey,
and because of your reason, I like your reasoning more. It is Canes. I want that Canes combo with the 4-piece, no slaw, extra toast. That's that film festival to me now.
That's the film festival, because guess what? We've got pretty people, they're out here, glitz and glam.
Why is Angelina Jolie there?
Because she stole children from Haiti.
Oh.
Okay.
That's a win. What are your thoughts?
But I will say, though, they made a new dress code rule. Did you guys hear about that?
No, hit me with it.
Okay, I'll hit you. So they banned nudity and voluminous outfits on the red carpet.
Heaven forbid.
What's the second word? Voluminous?
Yeah, so like overly empowering trains that like basically mess up the traffic and inflow of like people. And I don't know. And also just because everybody has been like just being super extra, and I think they're just trying to tone it down, especially the nudity aspect. In general, they've always had like strict rules compared to other festivals. Like I remember they had a rule where women had to wear heels. Like if somebody did not have heels on, they would turn them away. So there was like a lot of things like that. But yeah, because there's been a lot of like naked dress trends, you
Yes,
know,
a
where
lot of
they're
naked.
literally naked, but they think just because they have this sheer fabric or like chainmail on that, like, you know, as if that's clothing. So I mean, I get it.
Well, so you
and
said
honestly,
nudity, and what was the other word?
and voluminous outfits. So like dresses that are huge, that like the trains are huge, because it messes up like the inflow of
right.
like people.
That being said, so the reason they did nudity is so look what the middle camera looks like, by the way. Well,
Oh, sorry. From here it looks fine. Sorry, my bad.
I know, but when we do the cut, I get it.
Yeah. My bad.
That being said, I need to show you. So we know nudity, right? So Kanye can't come there and show the crazy shit. But
I mean, his wife.
I want you to see what was happening last year. This might have had something to do with it. I think when a guy shows up looking like a turkey, that's getting in the way of the runway.
I never knew that happened.
Oh, look at this guy. Maybe we'll go to. I've been trying. I don't know why I was so easy to find it earlier and not now. Look at this. We don't want this. Come dressed like a normal person, please. That was the rule. We're done with this stuff. We want dresses and suits. This isn't the Met Gala.
Yeah, exactly. So to piggyback off that, besides the nudity ban, they're just basically encouraging formal wear, like, you know, tuxedos, long gowns, all that type of stuff. But they're also
How
they're what?
controversial.
Traditional.
Yeah, they're getting rid of backpacks, sneakers.
Who's showing up with backpacks?
I don't know.
Dude, you'd be surprised. Come on. A dude showed up on a turkey head.
But the voluminous outfits are not only driven to ensure smooth traffic flow, but it's also for seating arrangements within the theater. Because imagine that, you know, like there's people who cannot sit down with some of these dresses, or they're blocking views of other people.
It'd
or
be
who knows
ridiculous.
what.
This lady's got a headgear that's just like blocking my view. I'm finally at like the elite of the elite shows, and here I am just like looking at the back of some lady's headdress, her hair just like sticking straight up.
Dude, imagine the turkey guy. You're sitting behind him and he's like a method actor. So like the whole time he's talking, he's like,
No, if I saw that guy, I would just be like gobble gobble.
That, and again, I'm not even watching the show anymore. I'm just watching the turkey guy. So I want to flip a thought to the Rethink Tank, the crew here. Let's do a little round table on our thoughts on something. So again, I take it back to like watching the documentary Blackfish, and it shows how there's a reason SeaWorlds and everything else went out of business. The trade for orcas is so cutthroat, disgusting, heartless. And so one of the questions I flip back to you guys is, so we have a consensus. There's aquariums everywhere, and nobody really cares about a fish in a tank. But mammals, bigger animals, like even Atlantis has a giant
slide
devil ray where it's like, you know, 20
as wide as
yards
that table.
wide
Yeah.
and just, you know, with the giant devil horns on it. Where else have I seen that in my life? I'll tell you, never. So there's a value to being able to experience these types of that we're sharing an earth with these things. And it's fascinating. We've got, you know, modern present dinosaurs that so many of us never get to see or experience. Not to mention we've only, you know, discovered 5% of the ocean. So like, what else have we not even seen? So when you look at a zoo, all right, we know how brilliant elephants are, but do you really care about the snake? So like, there's a line that people walk, and the question is, do you try to draw that line? That makes it a very sticky line. Then who becomes the arbiter of that line? What is moral to be in a zoo? What isn't? And so there's a social value, youth being able to experience this. I loved the zoo as a kid, but now as an adult, like, you know, we were in Spain. We needed a couple hours to kill, and we were in the middle of a park. Here's the Barcelona Zoo. Let's check it out. It was fun, but also at the same time, there's a sliding scale to the morality of every zoo, right? Some of them go above and beyond their care to make it so that they're better in captivity than in the wild. It's fantastic. There's some that go the extra length to make it almost like they are in the wild, where you get in a Jeep and you drive through their cage, quote unquote, because it's so large and they have so much property. But then there's the disasters. I'm projecting here, but what does Detroit Zoo look like? Watch that be like the greatest thing they have. But there's got to be pockets of this world that have totally immoral zoos. And so there's a discussion to be had about the morality of zoos. But then there's a totally separate discussion about that sliding scale and the fact that it exists. So should that mean we should do away with all zoos if there's the existence of bad zoos? And then that transfers over to these marine aquariums where we've pretty much eliminated the sideshows and this disgusting trade of very cognizant animals. Nobody's talking about the 12 dolphins. Dolphins, I really do think, are probably like the liaisons of Atlantis. And we've got them in a cage too. But I'm crying over the orca right now. So I flip it to you guys. Like, what are your thoughts on zoos, aquariums, and that moral line we have to like concern ourselves with and consider?
So first thing I'll mention is that a lot of these places that are doing it right have a huge effort in conservation efforts. And whether it be financial contributions, research, whatever, things that are for the well-being of animals and for their preservation and also for the education of the public. So I grew up going to SeaWorld because obviously it was in Northeast Ohio, and the zoo and different things like that. And I've always really loved animals. I even went when I was in Florida or somewhere in the amusement parks, I went to Steve Irwin. I don't know if I ever saw him, but those types of animal shows. But anyway, so I did get exposed to a lot of those things, and I loved animals. So for me, I think it was a very positive experience, and I think it can be a very positive experience, especially for children, like you mentioned, because there's no other way to be exposed to a lot of these animals, as long as, again, they're being treated right. And if they're also having an initiative to for lack of a better word, progress the animal, progress the animals, whether it be how can we improve their life through research and things like that. I think that that can be a positive thing. But yeah, so I mean, just because there's a few bad apples, I don't think it means everybody has to shut down, but I would definitely be a lot more intentional about regulation, maybe, or how they enforce quality of care or standards of cleanliness, etc.
But then again, the problem is when we look at the poor orca stuck in something that just looks so vile, we got to be reminded it's stuck there because of the red tape. So the answer being regulation. This is what regulation gets us. Regulation ties the hands of the people that are trying to take care of the orcas. Regulation slows down the process of getting them out of here. Guess what I'll tell you about how government works and how law compels action. When you say marine land needs to have an answer by December 2026, I'll tell you what, the odds of you getting an answer before December 2026 is almost zero. So it's where you drew the line a year and a half out. It's May. We've got 7 more months, and we've got a year till December 2026. You're telling me these things are going to survive? Something tells me we're banking on them being sick, them puking for a while, us getting just a little bit extra of cash, selling it to the perfume fragrance folks. And then when they die, problem solved. Oh, I had to have an answer by December 2026. I'm banking on them dying by December 2026. So part of the problem is I don't want to sit around and wait for legislation because I have no faith in the legislation. So while we need regulation, I agree, Katerina, it's a strong point. The other side of it is, first off, there's a whole legal argument. We could talk about that till we're blue in the face. But, keeping with more of the philosophy train of thought, like, Will, I'll flip it to you. What do you think about the morality of like this? I have a philosophy degree. We read books. So many philosophers have, considered what is the id, the consciousness, the understanding of an animal. And as much as I've pondered this and tried to consider this, it definitely feels like it's on a sliding scale. Like, we know jellyfishes aren't thinking. What if they are? And we just are assuming. But there's jellyfish, there's plankton, then there's orcas, and there's dolphins. I think dolphins are like superhuman, but we just haven't tapped into that yet. Who knows? They're at least like humans. So, Will, what are your thoughts on the sliding scale of consciousness in animals and where that creates our moral due to like them and their relationship with zoos or captivity?
I mean, I think all animals think. I think they're always thinking survival and adaptability. And I think the problem is when you keep creatures like this in captivity, their instincts are formed around the cage, the barrier in which they are in. And the issue is like for these two orcas is now your survival and adaptability, what it used to be when marine land was running completely fine, is completely gone out the window now. And now your survival and adaptability is probably fed once a day, knowing that and they have no idea that legislation's a year and a half out. Their instinct is literally adapt and survive, even though they're much more intelligent than, like you mentioned, like a jellyfish or a seahorse or something. Dolphins are up there with orcas, but I think all these animals like have a conscious survive, eat, reproduce, and it's like you've completely eliminated one of those things, reproducing, for these two orcas. Their survival ability is going down drastically, probably day by day, and their next thing is eat, and it's like it's controlled eating. Right. I truly think and I'm not a fan of aquariums and zoos. I understand the purpose of them, and I do think when they're run well, it is very beneficial. And they got to view them as pets, and it's like now you're looking at these two grown orcas as pets that are being starved, being deprived of resources that they're dependent on. Like, they don't live in a dependent life on their own in the wild where they provide their own food. It's like, no, they're codependent on us. And it just seems that the individuals, especially those in legislation, do not care, which it's a shame, but it's a cynical world that we live in. And, at the end of the day, what does a zoo want to do? And it's like, or an aquarium, and it's like, make profit. And it's like, it's now no longer a thing that's making profit. It's not going to be making profit. The only thing it's doing right now is keeping these two animals alive. And the very bare minimum profit that they're making is probably hoping they get sick and see how long they're sick for before they eventually, go belly up. And that's a shame.
One of the things you brought up is how their survivability is going down. So I want to flip a question back at you, just in brief response.
Sure.
If we can all agree, looking at that algae tank and a skeleton crew trying to keep, again, what are we talking about? We're talking about mechanics that need to keep the filters and the pumps moving. We're talking about who's bringing in the fish. Are you telling me there's a cat outside, like a homeboy out on a pier catching fish? No. So somebody's managing deliveries of fish to feed them. There's this, but it's a skeleton crew. So it's probably like 3 people going above and beyond what they're getting paid just to keep this thing afloat, literally and figuratively. And so when you and I can have a true dialogue and say, look at what they're in, survivability is going down, kind of like in refutation of Ricky's point. If the experts are telling me, and Douglas Murray knows, trust those damn experts. If the experts are telling me they couldn't survive in the outside, but me and Will are having a very real conversation about the fact that their survivability is also not exceedingly great at this joint, how can you truly try to convince me that they're not better off in a doesn't need filters, doesn't need packages of fish deliveries, just the wide open tank of the ocean, who's its predators beyond other packs of orcas? So I would try to control that environment where we put them in an area where maybe there's not a lot of territorial orcas and there's a lot of seals. So, Will, when just to follow up, because I wanted to get your thoughts, we agree survivability is going down. Is there truly an argument that it's better to have them in this algae tank than the ocean?
I'm sure there is, and I'm sure some dork would probably say that there is good reason for them to stay in it, but at this point, it's like almost inhumane.
Right.
You know, for like me, it's
Yeah.
like if like people were like kept in captivity and like the individuals like in charge of it all of a sudden decided, well, there's no point to it. You know, I guess like give them a little bit of food a day. It's like we as people, if we know there's no end to this captivity, we would intentionally starve ourselves.
Right.
Like we would just intentionally try to get out of this situation sooner. And if that's the means to do it, that's how we would do it. I don't think these animals are capable of doing that. They're like instinctively in their mind, it's to survive, you know, but it's like at some point they're going to, at what, in a year and a half, say they're still alive, what, they're going to drain the pool with them in it? Or then are they going to decide
Well,
to
then they're
put them
going to
into
try
the
to ship
wild?
them to an aquarium in Spain. It's like, well, you could have been. The fact that we can't take the steps to set that up now is even more of a tragedy. I was cutting off Katarina. Katarina, what were your thoughts? So you want to jump in with?
And also, whales are like highly like pack type animals, pods as they call them. So it would be hard for them to get accepted like into like they're going to be socially isolated more likely than not because of how whale.
You
Yeah,
know
you're
what I
right.
mean?
Good point.
It's
No,
like,
in general, I would say put them in the ocean because
that's where I'm at. How is I personally? I would rather. This is kind of like the movie The Mist. We're all trapped in a grocery store. If I go outside, the mist is going to kill me. Well, how long do I have to be in that grocery store, losing my mind, not really getting along with the folks in there, and crawling out of my skin before I go, you know what? I'm going to risk it with the mist. I'm going to go out there, and if I die, then guess what? This is my suicide. I'm going out there to deal with the mist. So part of me feels like this is that moment. But I'm projecting for an unconscious animal. I think it's quite conscious. I think if I was an orca, Hume would say, this is just me trying to see this is me trying to see what it's like to be a bat. If you know, you know. That being said, I want to get Ricky's rapid thoughts. Ricky, in this heartbreaking scenario where everybody wants us to focus on all the beautiful people down the street, what are your thoughts on this situation in Marineland?
So let's start with the celeb. They're the ones that usually be like, let's protect the animals and da 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 da. I'm surprised none of them has, say nothing. Where no protests, nothing down the street. Where the locking arms, blocking the limousines, going down to the red carpet. We didn't hear none of that, right? But I see why there's zoos because I have an ex back in my days that went to college to study marine biology because she went to SeaWorld as a child. So I see why they have it. I see, but it's good access. Not everybody can afford a boat to go out there and go whale watching and stuff like that. So if your parents can afford a ticket for you to go see something, imagine like, yeah, they're from Africa, get you a little education, like a gorilla silverback. I don't agree. Like we should go in the wild and go take them out. Let's take a new fresh one out every year. Let's take a fresh one out. I don't agree. Let's get a mom and a dad, breathe them, keep this family in captivity. But it's for the better of education. And I think Catalina said earlier, like there's studies like antibiotics, like stuff that helps them in the wild that gets studied from zoos and stuff like that. Third, let's call Jim Irsay because Jim Irsay loves his whale. Maybe he can fix this problem. He's a billionaire. Let's call him up on the phone. And you're right. This is like keeping humans in a molded prison. And it's not, they're getting feed on schedule. It's not healthy. It's not right. But there's not compare them to prisoners, but just, that's it.
They are. I'll agree with him there. Like they are.
So, Ricky, I want to follow up though. Here's a consideration, and I'm only asking it because this is again the Socratic method. The only way I just learned, the listener, we all can grow. When you raise a great point, here is someone of the youth that had exposure to something they otherwise wouldn't naturally be exposed to. And it put a fire, a passion in them that literally carved the rest of their life. And because of that excitement, because of that exposure, they're honestly going to be a positive impact in that field. And some would say that's kind of, that's not the only way, but it's a significant way in which we create that lane or create that dire passion, that spark in people. So we see the value. Even more so, do you guys like remember those zoo books as kids, like the comic
love
books
those.
that were like of every different type of animal?
Love them, man.
Exactly, right? So it's one thing to open up a zoo book about tigers, and I get to see the anatomy of a tiger and all these cool pictures of tigers with interesting facts about all the different tigers across the globe. But at the same time, it's nowhere near as just like impactful, dude. Being in that zoo in Barcelona, and they have right up against the glass lane there is this lion. You're just like, oh my God. I have an appreciation for this thing through Nat Geo Wild. But when I'm standing next to a thing that literally its paw and its arm
It's the size of
weighs
your
as
head.
much as my fat ass,
Yeah.
like would go right through me, that you walk away with something.
Yeah.
But is that something enough? You know, I a thing that's been a passion of mine, I so badly want to see whales. I want to go whale watching. And it's one of those things where it's like, you really, I wouldn't want to see them any other way than in their habitat. And what's kind of sparked that interest in me, like, you know, my sister's is otters. She could go see that at the zoo. She could go to an otter sanctuary. But like, what sparked it in me? I don't know. Maybe it's because all I did was see videos of it. And this is like the one thing I can't go to an aquarium to go see. And that furthers my interest. But if there was a guy, you know, guy who owns Victoria's Secret, he decides he's going to double the size of the aquarium. He's going to make the biggest SeaWorld, double SeaWorld. And he makes it big enough for these whales. Like it's kind of like the zoo in China where it's like we've made a giant sanctuary and we drive you through it. You're the caged animal. Like that's better. But how big, how luxurious before it's moral, before the value of making that passion in your friend outweighs the prisoning of these animals. At the same time, again, only for the sake of philosophical consideration.
I was also thinking that, like,
the
how
other
many
thing I want to flip your way, and then last thing, there
Oh.
are 50,000 orcas in the wild, right? So utilitarian in me is if I get all this value socially, what is 5 suffering orcas? Disgusting question, but one worth asking. Is it 5 too many? Is 10,000 too many? That's 1/5. We would never need 10,000. So is 20 enough? Like, look at the pandas. China's out here slinging them around, leasing them like cars, and they're an endangered species, but it's just a small number of them, and they eat good. We're giving them all the bamboo they want, but they're also in a cage. So I flip it to you with one. It's a harsh one, but the moral consideration of it's a couple orcas versus 50,000. But then also the consideration of its impact versus, and yeah, I'm going to flip it to you because I have one more thought I want to build off of that.
I just had to say, like, 100 kids went. She's probably the only one that got inspired. So that's all I was going to say. So yeah, that's it.
But did you ever go to like SeaWorld? Let me ask you that.
No, I went to the zoo before, and Cleveland Zoo. I went to
What
Cleveland
do you think
Zoo.
about the lion or the bear at the
I
Cleveland
loved
Zoo?
it. I loved it, but I didn't want to go study animals. You know, it was awesome. And it made me save a plane ticket from going to Africa and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to go all the way there to see them.
To flip a
It'll be
follow-up
nice.
thought to you, like we're at the Barcelona Zoo. We see this tiger mount itself up, give a loud roar. It was sweet. And this is it's moving around. It's doing its deed. It's warm. It's beautiful outside. And my sister makes the snide passing comment of like, I like this tiger more because the one at the Cleveland Zoo, every time you go, is just depressingly laying along the back, doesn't move. It's always there. So one, maybe it's because it's, the other one was energized by the beautiful weather of Barcelona, and this one is in Cleveland weather.
That tiger is like, man, I got this lake effect, dude. I'm sick of it.
I used to be a Bengal tiger in India, and now I'm in Cleveland dealing with the lake effect.
Dude, that Tigers area is like, Browns lost again. I don't get it.
To the Bengals. So you got this problem where, like, I agree with you. Probably not many people were impacted in such a way they become a Steve Irwin. But also, you remember seeing the tiger at that age. My favorite thing was going to the Rainforest Museum and seeing the anteaters. And, like, those are cool things I never really would see otherwise. I definitely wouldn't think anteaters were that big if I couldn't see one in person. So I guess what's funny is when I first started this podcast, I was a blind advocate for zoos. But there's like this multi-dimensional consideration of, like, there's good zoos, there's bad zoos. Should we even have zoos if there's bad zoos? And at the same time, I'm still never going to deny how much I enjoyed them and felt we needed them. So I'm going to flip something to Will, but I want to give you a chance for any wrapping thoughts on the whole Canes Music Festival and Orca debacle.
These people that's always protesting shit should have been there protesting. Okay, they should have stopped them from going to the red carpet. I'm just saying.
I think that's a great point. I love it. So, Will, I'm gonna flip it to you because I think I've kind of made my thoughts deep and considered. My wrapping thought is just gonna be, it's so, like Ricky said, these are the people that are always trying to champion some virtue, some new cause that they can, be the beautiful savior in. And it's funny that all of them were blind to this as they were just down the road from it. At the same time, is this not like a Simpsons cartoon? Like, it's so stereotypical of the people that we put on this high pedestal. Of course they'd be ignorant to it. If their agency and their labels aren't telling them about it, it doesn't exist to them. They don't have original thoughts. They don't speak original words. They are puppets. So until the puppet is showed it and told to speak it, they don't know about it. So here at the Rethink Tank, we talk about it as soon as we know about it. There's a true dialogue to be had. I'd encourage anybody to jump into the comments and give us their thoughts. One of the final things I wanted to address was when Will was talking, he was talking about the survivability, how Marineland at its peak, it was profitable. It was a healthier situation. These animals probably were living in a better environment. What's funny is, as I have this moral conversation and we reflect upon these experiences, I don't look back at, a dad in short khakis and tall white socks taking the family out saying, like, that was coming from a malicious place. And at the same time, imagine being the amusement park that, like, first developed this franchise type concept where it's like, we're going to go out and take the baddest beast in the ocean. We're going to make that bitch do flips and go through hoops and pop balls and splash people. And when you're like up, and it, for the first time, it's like, and it gets up, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe it worked. I'm not looking back at those people that developed this as, like, ill-intended or villains of this story. No, because I think that was just the natural recourse. Humans are can we conquer the biggest beast, like the dinosaur controlling the ocean? And then we got it to do flips, and we were like, come pay and see this shit. So that I don't have a problem with. And I think this is the natural, healthy development as it got bigger and it became this franchise thing. And then we learned, we can turn its vomit into perfume and make bigger bucks. It slowly changed in this more evil mechanism. Like anything, whether it's the dog trade or the orca trade, having a market for profit through living beings naturally creates a scenario where these entities, people, animals, anything will be victimized, being or objectified, then they're being victimized. So, Will, I appreciated your point about how, like, you look back at it, it was a better time, and it wasn't as ill-intended as this scene now, as we look at these orcas trapped by red tape and just lost in a vat of their own filth. So it's a shame, and we need to bring attention to it. You shouldn't be quiet about it. I mean, this really, when I look at like what Steve-O did, and he climbs naked to the top of some giant, I think it was in Paris, like it was somewhere
it was
where
in
he
Paris.
was naked, climbed a giant crane, and had a orca blow up with him to bring attention to SeaWorld. I mean, don't belittle that impact. It was a small impact, but everything's the butterfly effect. Stand for something or stand for nothing. Will, what are your rapid thoughts?
You know, the older I've gotten, the more I've realized, like, zoos, and they're a great attraction for like young families, kids, and it's even cool like to kind of go as an adult and see them, right? I guess I've just become more of a jaded adult, that when I look at these zoos and stuff, and I just think, like, is there like an exit plan for if like the zoo goes under, particularly for these animals? And it's like, this is a prime
Heck
example
no.
of like, no, like there isn't. They're just
Nobody
gonna
can just throw them in the back seat, dude.
exactly. So it's unfortunately just a sad reality of like what capitalism can do to these kind of things and these kind of creatures. That's why I don't personally go and support it myself anymore. I'm sure someday when I have children, it'll be a great, get out of the house day, take them, show them to see these cool creatures that like otherwise like they're not in this part of the world. We don't see, I think of like the Natural History Museum in Cleveland. They have an outdoor exhibit with like a lot of like native creatures. You can go and see like otters, barn owls, stuff like you don't normally see, but like they're in the area. Like you could easily let them go if need be. But like an orca, like how are you just going to let an orca loose? Or like
Dude,
these
you know
other
what's
animals?
funny?
Like I'm sure you're able to, but like, is it feasible? Is it easy to do? I don't know. And that's the problem when it gets to these situations where it's like, now they're just swimming around and no one's really like, they're not entertaining anybody. These are just two poor creatures just like swimming aimlessly in like just an enclosed exhibit until the end of their time. I'm not a fan of this, but I do like zoos more though than these young millennials and like these younger kids that go in these colleges to these foreign countries though and touch like a completely sedated animal that like the animal can't move. Like, oh my God, my life changed when I touched a tiger. It's like the tiger has so much tranquilizer on it, it would kill a normal
You
man.
might as well have touched a pelt.
Exactly. And it's like I could appreciate zoos, and it's like I understand Allison didn't like the tiger in ours because he's one of us. He's not happy to be here. He's not happy to be here. So but like at the end of the day, it's like it is an animal moving on its own. Like it's got all of its functions there. It understands it's in captivity. It doesn't know what it's like to live in the wild. And I'm sure that's why it's been a struggle to like release these orcas. But at the end of the day, like, what are you going to do? You're just going to keep letting them swim around, get sick, profit off their vomit and their illness, and then sounds like people. So I mean it's sad, but I don't see a good ending for this, unfortunately.
What's funny is you triggered something in me, reminding me just recently, last weekend, I was playing golf with Nanad, and he brought up a Serbian zoo, and he goes, in the Serbian zoo, they have American raccoons because they don't have them over there.
Yeah, I bet.
And to them, it's like this totally foreign concept. So the thing that you swat away from your trash in the middle of the night or just keeps getting in your shit is like a totally foreign concept to these Serbs. And they're like, oh my God, an American raccoon. And so I see the value. This comes back to my question with Ricky. It's like, I see the value of exposing some poor young Serb to an American raccoon. And then the very dark and evil consideration that philosophy compels us to consider, but honestly is a very real one, is when you put it with raccoons, it's like, who cares? One raccoon's a prisoner. Take 10. Like
I got 6 in my dumpster right now.
Exactly. So it's just funny, like the moral consideration evolves real quick depending on what we're talking about. Ants, make the biggest tank for ants you can. Take as many as you want. We wouldn't think twice. You could literally put all the ants in the Dubai Zoo. Nobody would bat an eye. Nobody. And then you'd have experts going like, you have no idea how this is going to impact the environment. We wouldn't think twice. Take them. Mosquitoes, you could have every single one. Raccoons, we giggle. I'll throw popcorn. But an orca, my goodness. It's just funny that like, this is how we consider, these are real living entities, but we as conscious beings still have, there's a totem pole of consideration, but some higher than others. It's just funny because like I'm with Will. The thing that's evolved in me is this thing that I started the podcast, this journey, just blindly advocating for is something I'm reluctant to tell you I still went to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm reluctant to tell you I still went to a zoo, but I'd be lying to myself if I said I didn't enjoy them.
Well, it's that dark side of it. It's like we've seen the bad side of them, and the bad side, it's just like, oh, these poor creatures, like they have no idea. Like they themselves have no idea what's going on, and we do, and we don't know what to do with it.
But that being said, red carpet, just focus on the red carpet, Will. You're focused on the wrong things. So we're going to move on to the next topic here. This one's a sad one. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. However, as someone who personally had families going through it, but at the same time, you guys called for a very real dialogue on this. This conversation we have to have was a stage you set. So what's the story we're talking about today? And it's that Joe Biden had to reluctantly announce to the country and the rest of the world that he was diagnosed with stage 9 cancer. Bro is at the end of the road. This is like the most severe it gets. Another thing that's worth interesting consideration is that's not a progression that just happens overnight or just happens in 4 months. So one of the things that's been a major reflection is how we've been lied to. We've been gaslit. I mean, my rear end is so hot from being gaslit for so long. And then we're just like, yeah, did you hear? Bro's been sick for a fat minute. Wait. Roll that back. What? Oh, yeah, that's the world we're living in. So I want to, before we totally open up the catalog here, I want to take a walk down memory lane. So the first one, some of the more impactful ones, amongst the more impactful ones, is Karine Jean-Pierre. Man, I do not miss her representing the White House. Just as she did, I've honestly never seen somebody do it so blatantly because she didn't do it well. She just did it in your face. The lying queen, Jean-Pierre.
Part of the problem that Democrats are articulating is that it wasn't just that he had a cold, but rather he had, answers. He was trailing off. He didn't answer some questions in a sort of fulsome way. And speaking of Nancy Pelosi, one of the things that she recently said was that it was a legitimate question whether his performance was an episode or a condition. So I guess I wondered if there's been any consideration given to like releasing a more robust set of medical records or something to show his mental acuity.
So I will say this, look, and again, I get the question. It is a fair question to ask. We are not taking that away, and that's why the president certainly has spoken to this. As it relates to his medical records, we have been transparent. We have released thorough reports from his medical team every year since he's been in office. That is something that we have been pretty consistent about. As it relates to, something like a cognitive test, to the question that you're asking me about what the speaker, former speaker said, obviously she can speak for herself. His team, who has said, the medical team said it is not warranted in this case. We have put forward a thorough, transparent annual report on his health. So they have said that is not warranted. It is not necessary. Again, we understand. We're not taking away from what you all saw or what the American people saw. Yeah. We understand. It was a bad night. It is not uncommon for incumbents to have a bad night on their first debate. And we are going to continue to do the work that we have been doing on behalf of the American people. I think the president's record certainly speaks for itself.
And that was night one, right? And he's going to continue to move on. What's crazy is here's a video of him. I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but it piggybacks off of this moment perfectly. It's just funny to fast forward then to January 10th, right? So
Of this
just
year?
of this year,
Okay.
Just turning the new year, where now we're moving into a new presidency. And here's Joe Biden, carte blanche, fully belief. If I would have ran, I would have won.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election? Do you think that made it easier for your predecessor to now become your successor?
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that
Yeah.
Kamala could have beaten Trump.
Well, she didn't.
Trump. It wasn't about, I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about
How'd
whether
that
or
go?
not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party. And it was the greatest honor in my life to be President of the United States, but I didn't
Tip-top
want to
shape.
be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win.
Do you think she
So here's what's interesting. Wait, actually, I want to go back to that. Should she want to run again?
I think that's a decision. I think she's competent to run again in 4 years. That'll be a decision for her to make.
Tip-top shape, best shape he's ever been in. That being said, I want to continue down memory lane. I'm not going to bore you with all 3 minutes of it, but here's 3 minutes of the insane echo chamber sanity had to live in.
Because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
He's sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
I don't have any concerns, and that's from personal interactions.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. Alert.
Trust CNN?
I mean, the Republicans are like good at distractions.
I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And if the Democrats were honest, they'd admit President Biden's mental capacity is declining. 6 in 10 Americans don't have confidence in Joe Biden's mental capacity.
Then you have the liberal media told bad things about me and members of the oversight committee because we have the audacity to investigate.
Giving us their drive-by diagnoses of the President of the United States.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
Democrats get into a frenzy.
Do you think people close to President Biden are being honest about his mental state?
And these slip-ups kind of happen.
I mean, there should be no concern.
So I don't really care if he was off for 90 minutes and didn't put on like people wanted him to put on.
I saw no more in his declination than I've seen in anybody else.
Sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
This is a very sharp president.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing.
He is sharp. He is on top of things.
The president has no impairment.
Nobody's buying that. No. Nobody's buying what he's selling.
And the pipeline of videos that aren't telling the full truth.
All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity is declined is wrong.
The same right-wing influences that are trying to take me down are trying to take down President Biden. So
Joe Biden's not the one calling the shots.
And let's look at President Biden.
People see he's not. Nobody suggests he's senile, and that's disrespectful of senior people with any kind of memory disability.
We're all aware of how he's doing.
President of Mexico, Sisi, we finally beat Medicare.
Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. You know what? I don't really care.
I'm serious.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
President Biden's
decline and its cover-up by the people around him.
Cover-up is a very loaded term.
I don't think that there is a huge cover-up underway here.
If anybody out there gives a damn about the truth, read that interview.
Original sin. It's about President Biden's disastrous decision to run for re-election and the cover-up of his decline.
We missed a lot of this story.
And I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline, the cover-up of his decline.
We missed a lot of this story.
If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
And they say I'm in good shape. Okay?
I promise you I'm in good shape. It's
Wow.
a shame that, you know, we have to have such a real dialogue about somebody that's going through such a terrible, struggling moment in their life. But at the same time, it's a bed that him and his family made. You made yourself not just a public figure, but a prominent leader. And that then opens the door to real criticism, not harsh, unempathetic, emotional criticism, but grass is green, sky is blue, black is black, and white is white. Here's the line. There's no gray, real criticism. And there's something to be said about a shadow government that's been running the country for the last 4 years and tried to shoot the president that was going to take away their ability to continue their shadow government. The fact that this carcass can look at us and say, I would have won. She would have won. She did it. So what reality are you in? Because it ain't ours. So it isn't just that. It's the entire mechanism around him. There's people that were financially incentivized. It's easy to get that dope from CNN to say whatever you want him to say because he's cashing a check that's getting him to do it. But it kind of grew beyond that. This cult mentality of willful ignorance. We're choosing to be ignorant. I see it for what it is. I saw the dude trip upstairs and be liaisoned by a CIA agent in a bunny costume. But hey, I'm going to pretend he's the strongest he's ever been. And if he were to run, I'd still be giving him my vote. And so there's also a major dialogue to be had about the mechanism around him. The media, the government workers, the politicians, his administration, a cabinet, a whole field party of politics that was willing to see his shirt is blue and still tell you it's red, lie to your face and call you a racist, misogynistic pig if you started to even ground yourself in that reality. There is a very important scientific experiment that was held by the CIA. I can't remember what it's called, but you could Google this. They did an experiment where they brought in 20 people, and 19 of the people were other agents. The 20th person did not know that. And they told all 20 people that they are participants in this experiment. And in the room, a guy in a lab coat holds up a sign, and it's got a square on it. And he goes around the room, tell me what you see. Circle, 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 19 times before it gets the 20th person who is seeing a square. And almost every time they comply with the groupthink, even though they know that is not the reality. But to comply with, well, is there some social mechanism I'm not aware of? Is there something I missed? So they say circle. And it is almost foolproof. So when you have all of the people in unison creating a false reality, it's so easy for the dopes and even the prominent figures to fall victim to it.
Do you think that Joe Biden is cognitively able to be president? Yes or no?
Yes, I do. You can check out the neurology report he had earlier this year in February, where there said there was no concern, no cognitive disorder. That's coming from an actual doctor, actual neurologist.
We're all making this up. Everything we see every day, the inability to say one complete sentence. We're all making it up.
It's just interesting. Well,
watch his speeches. You should watch his speech he gave in Philly the other day at the church. It was fabulous. It was incredibly good.
No. It's just willful lying to us. He's rubbing the legs, the hairs on my legs. And he's like, did you hear his speech? One of the greatest speeches ever, the healthiest he's ever been. You are crazy if you think otherwise. You must hate black people if you don't see him as the greatest orator to ever exist. And you're just like, what reality am I in? So then how does this evolve? This evolves to where, the guy in charge, the guy holding the nuclear football, all of the codes that could end existence.
President, I don't think Robbie to hear.
The guy who's being led by the blind.
Listen to him. President, I don't think Robbie to hear. Where am I? Right here, sir. I'm right here. Okay, here's the boss. Let's go over here.
We're talking about a guy who is literally led by a blind guy being led by another guy. That's the guy we gave the nuclear codes to. Exhausting quite a lot here. I've still got more to unpack, but Ricky, since we got you here, what are your thoughts?
This kind of give the Dems less foot to stand on. You know what I mean? Like
they had one.
They had one.
Well, they were trying to build it back. You know what I mean? They were trying to build it back with the public and stuff. But this, like, give them less credibility. But to a certain extent, the media now, like, I can see it, like, not trying to, if they knew, not trying to put it out there, say he had cancer. Only example I could come up with is FDR, because the media wasn't publicizing his polio and shit like. So I can understand if they didn't.
That's a different world.
That's a different world.
There's not like 50 videos of bro not walking.
They're playing us as fool, like not seeing him actually declining right in front of her freaking eyes. You know, not acknowledging he was declining. Like y'all always say, he was a Roomba. You know what I mean? Like
he's a Roomba, baby.
Over here, over there. Where's the dust? You know. So it even my baby that don't like to shit on vibes, she sees it and she acknowledges it. Because part of being like, you know, being a fair human or just being objective, not really picking a side, you have to just point out crap when you see it. Like the dude was tripping over his own feet and his laces was tied. Like, you know.
What was his tongue?
And plus, that shows he was going through all that treatment the whole time, all medged up. And that's why as well, with his elder stage, he was all, you know.
See, I disagree a little bit.
Well, let's hear it.
I understand, like Ricky's point, like they're trying to build it up with the public, like the Democrats are trying to build up their base. If they knew this back in 21, 22, which is really when I think probably he got like diagnosed, like his diagnosis became serious, you should have let the American public know then, instead of 3 months before the election, we're going to pull him out.
Remember?
You could have built it up then.
What was
and
it,
then
21?
You could have gotten more sympathy out of the American people. Be like, well, we know he's old and he's been flubbing, but we've already started. Instead, we got 4. You want to know what it really reminds me of? And we as Browns fans could, I'm making a Browns analogy because, boy, it reminds me of Biden last year.
Say Deshaun.
It reminds us of Deshaun. First few games last year, he gives us best opportunity to win. And everybody watching the game is like, he doesn't. And they kept saying it, and they kept saying it, and they kept saying it. And what happens? He gets hurt, and they got to take him out. Now compare it to Biden. He's there. He's all there, sharp as a tack, never lost a step. You're an idiot if you think he's cognitively bad. One debate with Trump, where Trump, in his defense, was not very him, just sort of let him talk, and it was like, I don't even know what he said. You don't know what he said. I think it kind of speaks for itself. What, 2 weeks later, they remove him?
Right.
You know,
Well, and back to your timeline, I'm going to flip it back to you, but I just want to remind you, bro was out of commission for months because he had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, that's like the 21, 22 type of window we're looking at. So what are the odds that it was COVID or it potentially was, you know, trying to deal with a diagnosis?
And if you see photos of him like 2020, 2021, he looks different in 22, 23, and 24.
Well, here, this is one thing I've had queued up. Here's 21 versus 24.
Yeah.
I mean, bro, lost.
And, you know, I don't wish this on anybody, but I do believe in karma. And right there, we all know the deal with his family. We all know the deal from the past decade, 12, 16 years with his family. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, man, they lied to us for years. They lied to everybody for years. And I'm not saying that entire party knew. I'm sure there were a bunch of them that didn't know. But the ones in that circle, they knew. They kept it from us, and they gaslit us for years.
Hey, they knew. Everyone around us knew. And go ahead, Ricky. What were you going to say?
Did they know that he had the diagnosis? Or
no, people,
they were just not acknowledging that he was freaking losing it?
Well, I think that's exactly what Will's point is. Will's point is we didn't know what he was sick with. But you telling us he's the strongest he's ever been, his mental acuity has never been higher, that the dude who's like humble and I mean, literally every week there was a major blunder in a speech. And then you got Harry Sisson going, have you heard his speeches? He's sharp as a tack.
And it's
like, Will's point is, I'm not over glee that he has cancer. It's that we knew something was up. I don't care what it was. And you told us this is like Deshaun, this is our greatest chance at winning.
And it's one of those things too. It's like, if you just made a mention, you didn't have to tell us how serious it was, but like, hey, he has cancer. He's going to be on some medication. Okay, we at least know, like, yeah, you might not all be there. Instead, it's the complete absolute opposite. And the people in his wife, the doctor, don't forget, she's a doctor. She will let you know she's a doctor. She knew. She 100% knew the severity of his illness.
And kept throwing him up there.
Kept propping him up there. She was helping him off the stage because he didn't know where to go because he's on medication. I'm not going to hate on him for being on medication, but what I am going to do is hate on them for looking at us and being like, how dare you question?
Gaslighting.
How dare you? You're a horrible person. And we're all watching the same screen going like, something's off. Something's very off. And
Carter that year to make sure he voted. You know,
making that comparison.
You know,
Jimmy Carter's a dead carcass, and they're like, he's told us he's never been more excited to vote for the first black female president, and he's just sitting there. It's like, that guy told you that.
You know, and it's just such a. It's one of those things, and it's, again, Ricky, I appreciate your point though, saying like the Democrats are trying to build themselves back up, and it's like, sure, I can agree. Of course, they're going to try and do that. They do it so poorly. They're not honest. Like people could be upset with the current administration being too transparent. Like they're unbelievably open. The last one wasn't open with us at all. And if we had any questions, they'd be like, you're disingenuous, you're a misogynist. They would throw every trigger word they could at you to kind of dissuade your point. And our point was simply, he can't say complete sentences. He's having difficulty walking. He looks like he's aged ridiculously. And I understand he's an elderly person already. But I mean, this video right here, he was, like Alexander said, they're worried about the current administration having access to the nuclear codes. This guy, it's the blind leading the blind literally in real time with the nuclear code.
So I got a response comment because I loved your point of, you know, what makes this so bad is the gaslighting, the lying to our face. If you just acknowledge that something was wrong, at least we would have an appreciation for, you know, transparency, honesty. You're truly trying to represent us rather than dictate us and control us. However, what's interesting about that call, Will, is calling for transparency, honesty, truth. Give us information. Let us sort it out. You don't need to digest it for us and tell us how to interpret it. Give us the information. We'll interpret it. What's interesting about that, Will, is if they made any acknowledgement that, hey, there's potentially something wrong with this guy, then back to that first clip we showed of the doctor testifying, how dare you suggest that I omitted things to show that indicated he needed to be removed? It's like, if they acknowledged at all any of that, then there's an act of perjury, and somebody's medical license is up for grabs. Somebody's going to be coming for it. So not only do they have to avoid that acknowledgement for the sake of the doctor's job and license, but even more so, the second there is any shadow of doubt, then the president himself is going to be under strict scrutiny, investigation, and inquiry. And guess what's hilarious? Donald Trump has some college kids or high school kids that won a championship, and he fills the White House full of McDonald's. And they're like, we need a health check. Fat boy only eats McDonald's. Look at him. Look at him. Have you seen the naked statue London made of his body? He's atrocious. Must be unhealthy. Definitely unfit to be president just based on his health. And then they pull his health. They literally do a health exam because there's an inquiry about his fitness to be president.
Yep.
And he passes with flying colors. So they did that to that president. They know the second you open the door to, there's some decline, then there's going to be scrutiny with the actual checkup or in medical evaluation. But then even more so, it's going to call upon for more medical evaluations, which makes it harder to fudge and hide and twist the truth. So it's sad that the one thing that would make this not hell ablaze, we are at war type of story is that acknowledgement. But that acknowledgement would have bottomed out, would have brought the whole house of cards down. Literally.
Yeah. And it's like, you got to think, you posted it, like you showed a video and he's like, oh, I would have won again if I ran, just back in January. And it's what, mid-May. And it's like, oh, he's on his way out the door. Right. Never told us till now. There could have been an entire election where that was the entire purpose of it. It's just that party has no idea how to operate and how to handle the information that they're given. And it's crazy just how easy they lie. And then not only lie, but say you're wrong and you should check yourself. It's scary. Like, it's really scary. I hope the best for him. Like, this isn't something I'm wishing upon anybody, but I do believe in karma. And if there's one thing I will say about him and his family as a whole, it has been nothing but corruption. And that's the only thing that's come out in recent years. And I mean, the best thing what he probably did in his entire administration was pardon his son. Like, if you ask me, that, like, so for this to be like the end road for him, it's a sad way. It's a sad thing to see.
Well, like you said, the only thing he did was protect his one son. Well, speaking of the other son that wasn't a crackhead and actually did something with his life.
Actually served this country.
Exact bingo. So what's interesting is, I want to take this conversation now to a different direction, which we've had a strong and thorough dialogue about the sick party that lies to your face. But while the other side is also a team of villains, a more transparent, honest team of villains, had a totally different perspective. And it's interesting, somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who has a military background, also had personal experiences with the Biden son who actually did something with his life.
With his son, who also served in the Army National Guard. And, people have asked me, like, did you see signs of this back in 2020? No. I mean, it was the same Joe Biden that I'd known for many, many years. And I think recently someone did a side-by-side of his performance in 2020 versus now, and how significant that difference is. So even hearing Kamala Harris and the people around him and, Morning Joe on MSNBC say, oh, he's never been sharper and he's in the best form he's ever been in his life. Like, anybody who knows him now and certainly has known him over the years knew that was all crap.
We've all seen those photos of before term and after term. I mean, even
That's
Obama,
who
entered as this sort of vibrant, handsome black guy, and he comes out and you go, that's 2 decades in 8 years. Congratulations.
Full job.
Yep, of course it is.
Every president that served. So obviously, when you're in your late 70s, just imagine the toll.
Ruthless. So this is something about to make one of the most unpopular cases that the internet's going to hear this year.
So I wanted to cut that off quicker, but kept going. The thing that I want to draw upon is now, again, not to say that the other team of people are good either. They're all crooked. But when you sit back and ask yourself why those folks won and the beautiful Democrat Party didn't, understand that their words are resonating with the populace more than the rest. And it's because, who would have thought, truth has more weight and power than a series of repetitive lies. You could keep saying it over and over and over again. It doesn't make it true. And it will take you forever to continue to repeat a lie, to keep it a reality. But you only need to tell the truth once for it to shatter it all to hell. That being said, when you ask yourself why these folks keep winning, these are the words of the people, of the person that continues to have the populace's backing for 3 elections.
Respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer. Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital, do it. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. Got them all. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical...
It'd be unconstitutional. Since when has the deep state ever cared about the Constitution? It's like it only when it benefits our monopoly system do we call upon the Constitution. Don't forget they were calling the Constitution immoral and a threat to democracy. Those are the same people we're talking about.
As a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there, and that's being proven to be a sad situation. And the auto pen is becoming a very big deal. The auto pen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that.
Let's not gloss over that. The president is talking about how they're able to use an auto signature to sign things as the president. Yeah, who was clicking that button?
Seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that
real
was
president,
not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess we're in. You're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example, if I were president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, when this takes a long time, can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation, and I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case. Maybe it was the same doctor, and somebody is not telling the facts. That's a big problem.
I've got 2 short clips that I want to balance with this Trump comment that is also Trump, and it kind of completes the full picture of his perspective on the situation, but even more so Joe Biden.
The only thing I totally admired about Sleepy Joe Biden is the following. He'd go to a beach. He'd lay down in a cot, barely able to get his feet through the sand. He'd lay down, and within minutes he's sleeping, and you have cameras watching him. I could never do that. I would never be able to sleep like that. That's about the only thing I think that was wonderful. He was a disaster. This man was a disaster. I don't sleep much. You don't sleep much. A lot of people that love what they're doing don't sleep much, I find. And so far, it's been okay.
And then this one
like
is
throwing it up. How was your breakfast today? What kind of ice cream are you having? It's vanilla. It's vanilla and chocolate. Oh, great. Nobody ever asked me what flavor ice cream I'm eating. Okay.
Dude,
I love it. I didn't realize there's like a little bit more of like how he just continues on. Nobody asked me what ice cream I'm eating, and they would scrutinize it anyway. And he goes, I also love the point of like, I don't sleep. He looks at the lady across from him. You don't sleep. If you have any passion, you don't sleep. You work, you grind, you have something that keeps you up. Joe Biden, he's got no problem kicking back. Does he have a son to take care of? He's snoring himself. He's got it figured out. Like, it's just like you're lazy on your parenting, let alone being the daddy of America. And this is kind of the situation we're in. So before I flip it to the room, I'm going to give Ricky a chance. Ricky, what are your thoughts on all this this craziness as we continue on?
Rapid thought. They never had a foot to stand on. They should have acknowledged just the decline. They had to acknowledge his diagnosis. They didn't,
but then they'd have to remove him. That's kind of what I was flirting with Will. That acknowledgement means you're giving up the puppet. And you got to understand, back to like Trump's point of like the person pushing the button for his auto sign is not itching for a new president, because you can't auto sign Kamala Harris.
Right. So wait, so if he, well,
so if he gets removed, Kamala becomes president, the Speaker of the House becomes the vice president, and the deep state doesn't have as much unfettered,
I
control.
get, but it would give the deep state or the Dems more power just being honest. You know what I mean? And even if he stepped down, they still would have had the first black female president. I'm just saying.
I would have thought for sure they would have done that in the last couple months just to accomplish that goal and to build her momentum going into the campaign. Crazy that they didn't do it. And then again, here's the dude on film saying, I would have won if they didn't do it.
Yeah, and I thought he only went up to stage 5. I did not know there was a 9.
Bro is cooking. He is literally one walking cancer cell.
Well, it's like stage 5, and then there's like sub stages.
So
it's like stage 5, level 9, or something like that.
Bro,
that's like what's called.
They're literally a walking radiation bomb, bro.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Probably. He is Chernobyl.
He's up there with the Chernobyl dogs.
Yeah.
And he's also tired. Like, he got to be taking a lot of pills for the pain and shit. Bro, like, that man is high.
Bro's wired. That's for sure. Adderall on steroids. Flip it into the room. We haven't had a chance to get Katarina's thoughts on all this as we've been just dumping and unfolding. Katarina, what do you think of all this?
Well, I think that it's very clear, despite the gaslighting, like what we see and what we're observing. And I think that the American people should get more credit, like even though they need us, like in regards to our vote, they don't always kind of make it obvious that they respect us, that they think that we're smarter than to fall for every little thing. So anyway, I think that, despite whatever criticisms people can throw at Trump, he's bringing up a very clear, question: is this person suitable? And in my opinion, like when I'm seeing him versus Biden, like I do think that Trump seems to be a lot more suitable, despite whatever criticisms people have. Like Biden did not seem okay cognitively and otherwise. Cancer is separate than like cognition, but if he's on medication, all of those things could be affecting you. So I think that transparency is always good, and the reason why they didn't is probably because it wasn't in their best interest, their agenda. But I'm hoping that we can have a little bit more clarity about it, and I just think everybody made some really great points. I just second those.
Love it. Will, I got a little bit more I want to unpack before I give a wrapping thought, but did you have anything else you wanted to add before?
No, add your thing first, and then I'll go.
So the last thing I want to add, and then we can get into our wrapping thoughts, is, red team, blue team, they're all a bunch of crooks. But the reason the red team keeps getting people's attention, at least right now, is because the tool that they're using is truth. And it's not the whole truth, but it's enough of the truth to just bury the liars. And that's why they've got so much momentum behind them. So it was interesting kind of taking the we were going down one path, all the lies being thrown at your face. Like Katerina says, it just total gaslighting for us to go polar opposite down a different road where the one party that really doesn't get much done because they're fingers of the same hand, at the very least, they're the ones saying to our face exactly what we're experiencing. And it corroborates our ability to continue to support them because it's like, there, kind of like the Leo DiCaprio, that, finally, somebody's saying what's on my freaking head. And as I'm looking at the villains, there's quite literally nobody that had a better response to this very sad and depressing news than J.D. Vance. And I got to hand it to him. This is the clip.
Of Joe Biden, sir, do you have any thoughts on his diagnosis?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job.
Beware that this insurgent is easily going to become president. The more he just continues to speak truth to power, and even though he's just as much of a conflicted part of the power, he's the only one calling it out in a room with Zelensky. Just, you're the problem, dude. He's looking at us going, this is not a cruel and lacking empathy type of perspective. This is wishing proper health outcome for Joe Biden versus the deceit and corruption that was applied on the American people. And if we don't allow ourselves to have a very real conversation, history loves to repeat itself, and we'll find ourselves in this hellscape again. So that being said, I leave you with my wrapping thoughts. My wrapping thoughts being a video.
Remember, kids, the next time that somebody tells you the government wouldn't do that, oh, yes, they would.
True.
It's so true. I have to cut the music off because YouTube will be mean about it. But it's just, they lie to your face. And I love that quote. Just remember, kids, when people say the government would have lied to you, remember, yes, they would. Why? Because that's all they've done. Will, let me flip it to you for your wrapping thoughts.
I wish the former president health in his last few days. No, I don't know how soon it'll be, but it's not good. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I saw the diagnosis. The instant that they said it was in the bones, I was like, okay, yeah, he's out the door. I hope he spends time with his family. Now, speaking on his family, I think his son and his wife are two of the most corrupt people to ever. I think they're actually evil lizards. I don't think they're good people. I think they propped up their father for as long as they could to get the profits that we all know what they're getting the money from. I think the Democratic Party, again, they've been taking losses for 2 years now, and maybe this will be the turning point at which they finally decide to be a little bit more transparent with the American people. I don't think they will be, but just because I think they're so used to it, I don't think they could change. I just hope for the best for the guy. Nobody wishes this for it, but I do believe in karma, and you reap what you sow. So I'll send it back to you.
Cheers to that. So our last topic here may be a little bit more shallow because honestly, we don't have our Will get us to the finish line, but our in-house animator, Doug, isn't here today. So that kind of makes it a little tougher. But a Japanese manga's prediction of a catastrophe has tourists canceling trips to the island nation. This might sound like a plot to a disaster movie, but a recent spate of so-called catastrophic predictions has led to the superstitious travelers, particularly in East Asia, canceling or delaying their holiday to Japan. While seismologists have warned that accurately predicting when an earthquake might strike is all about impossible, it seems quite many tourists have decided to head the predictions made by Japanese comic book that warns of a real catastrophe, a psychic predicting, quote, mass destruction, and a well-known feng shui master who is now urging people to stay home. While soothsayers and social media have added to the hysteria, most people who have chosen to stay away from the island nation are referencing a manga comic book back in the day by artist Ryo Tatsuki, published in 1999. The book The Future I Saw warned of a major disaster in March 2011, which turned out to coincide with the cataclysmic quake that struck Japan's northern Tohoku, I don't know, region that month. The complete version of the comic was, however, released in 2021 and claims that the big earthquake will hit this July. At the same time, psychics from Japan and Hong Kong have shared similar warnings, triggering a paranoia that has led to the cancellation of travel plans to the region. The speculations have scared off mostly travelers from China and Hong Kong, which are Japan's second and fourth largest sources of tourists. But the fear has now also spread to other tourists in Thailand and Vietnam, where social media platforms are exploding with posts and videos warning people to think twice before taking a trip to Japan. Tatsuki's work has a huge following in East Asia, with her fans often believing she can accurately see the future. And this is kind of like our Simpsons. The manga draws a cartoon version of herself in the comics where she shares her visions. It might sound kooky, but some of her dreams turn out to bear a close resemblance to real-life events. CNN reports that while critics say her visions are too vague to be taken seriously, her 2011 quake prediction made Tatsuki famous not just in Japan, but also in other parts of Asia like Thailand and China. The manga's cover bears the words "massive disaster" in March 2011, leading many people to believe that she predicted the 9.0 magnitude earthquake more than a decade before it hit. Fans believe that she predicted the deaths of Princess Diana and singer Freddie Mercury, as well as COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to the comic book selling 900,000 copies. In the last edition, The Future I Saw, Suzuki warned that on July 5th this year, a crack will open up under the seabed between Japan and the Philippines, sending ashore waves 3 times as tall as those in the Tohoku earthquake. The author was recently asked what she thought about the canceled trips resulting from the readers' interpretations of her book, with Japanese newspapers reporting last week that while she viewed it very positively, that the interest in her work was making people more prepared for disasters, she urged them not to overly rely or be swayed by her dreams and, quote, act appropriately based on expert opinions. Let's just hope her comic book is wrong. So with that all being said, we love looking at The Simpsons. I mean, like, look what The Simpsons predicted. But also that's just called making, like, 30 years of content. You're bound to hit something right. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on, do we think we have a soothsayer here, somebody that can predict the future? Should we keep a consideration open? Because a lot of people are predicting this is the end times, and maybe this is just going to coincide with that. Or is this just a whole bunch of hubbaloo? And, what's his face wrote Spider-Man, and we don't see a Green Goblin coming anytime soon. So what's to say this is any different? No. Do you have any thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think the sun someday will blow up. I think I'm going to be right someday. It
may not be a day you're here.
Yeah.
But you'll be right.
Yeah. Hey, I'm already right. I'm a genius.
Wait, but here's the key. The truth is, she's not just saying someday. She's saying at this time, and it's happened. So you got to ask yourself, like, hey, is there something there?
Sure. And until the day comes when it happens or doesn't, dude, if that day came by and it didn't happen, I would go right up to her and be like, you ruined my trip. Like, I would be furious if I believed it. But it is an interesting thing because, like, Japanese culture, like, they, not just in manga, but like one of my favorite Japanese movies is Shin Godzilla. It was like a remake of like the original 1954. And a lot of the themes were based off of like natural events that had happened in the prior 20 years in the country. That kind of like was the basis of the plot and how like Godzilla was formed. And it's a country, like, I think because it is an island, there is a lot of fear of the unknown. And like, again, we live in Northeast Ohio. We don't really get tornadoes. We get no natural disasters. We mainly just get lake effect snow. And we act like it's the end of the world. It's like they're in a world where it's like at any given day, they could have a magnitude of an earthquake of like 8.0 on the Richter scale and completely like change your whole lives. So
get wiped out.
Yeah, so I like, could she be right? Sure. But it's like everybody said 1999 was going to be the last year ever on Earth and that Skynet was going to rise and we were all going to be wiped out. And then all of a sudden, it was January 1st and nothing happened and we got to enjoy New Year's Day and watch the Rose Bowl. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. She's a soothsayer, and so am I because the sun is going to blow up someday.
Well, it is interesting. You're only a soothsayer as far as you get it right. Like you can't. We
get constant heartbreak.
We get constant heartbreak. No, but it is interesting. Like, how many of these things people fall for on TikTok, like the predictions of who's going to win the Super Bowl. Like I have 2 marbles race and it's like either the dude picked it and it was like, oh my God, he was right. I put $200 down and my mortgage and we won. Or you're after the fact cursing the guy. His marbles weren't magic. It's like, yeah, dude, this is only going to go one of 2 ways.
Well, it's like, remember 2012? Remember that was going to be the end of the world?
Dude.
And it's like that was a big deal when you were in high school, and now it's 2025, and we wish it was the end of the world.
Right. Did you have any follow-up?
I don't believe her. Like, yeah, and I think that nobody really knows. I think people can always speculate, but yeah, I just feel like regardless of I know some people believe like in like mediums and intuitives and this and that, but no, I don't really fully believe that, like that people can, I don't know. I just think that's like a lot of mysticism and yeah, I just don't really agree, I guess, with the predictions.
And
but
here's what
we never know. We
Right.
could be surprised.
And here's what I'll say, going off like Katarina's saying, and like going off Alex, your original thing, like The Simpsons. It's like The Simpsons never, I won't say they really predicted the future. I think The Simpsons, much like Family Guy and South Park, are very good at seeing the current like climate and the change in people and stuff like that. And be like, they were looking at like Donald Trump in the 80s and being like, he could be president someday. Like, couldn't you see that? To say like, oh, there's going to be an earthquake on this date. It's like, how do you know that? Like, what research are you doing? Are you just touching your rocks and your crystals, flipping a tarot card or 2 and thinking, oh, it's going to happen now? Like, I'm just not buying it.
Well, and it's a great intro. Your point is strong. If the manga's cover bears the words, quote, massive disaster in March of 2011, you got 30 days for something to happen.
Yeah.
And if anything happens, I called it. Told you. Told you it was coming. I don't know. Ricky, what do you think of the whole thing?
Well, I'm from a culture where if you give someone something, they can put bad luck on you. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, like, we believe in, like, what we say, obia, but you always say voodoo. So, like, we believe in stuff like protecting you and stuff like that. But as she actually predicted that day that the freaking tsunami hit years ago and it hit, who am I not to cancel my trip for a later date? What's so
I ain't messing with nature, baby.
If she got one right, maybe she's onto something I'm not onto.
Here's what we do know. We surely are going to follow up on this show August 1st. As soon as July is done, it's either a ha-ha or a oh crap. Did you see what happened in Japan?
Dude, you will see me on the show being like, I'm wrong. She got me.
She's got powers.
She got me. I hope she predicts the Browns in the Super Bowl now.
I don't believe in too much superstitious stuff, but like, if she got one right, bro, like how, like,
but she had 30 days for just anything to happen. Told you, massive disaster.
Yeah, March 29th, it finally happened. She's like, oh, thank God. Thank God. My credibility's intact. Everyone else is sad and distraught. She's like, thank God.
Did she pick the exact date the tsunami hit?
No.
Or she just said
March 2011.
Yeah, hey, to quote Katarina, it's giving false prophet.
But hey,
so Ricky,
me, honestly, I would just cancel my trip on X to a later date.
To August.
What do I have to lose? Like, you know, shit.
So, as somebody that kind of lives in the spiritual realm, you know, witch doctors, voodoo, it was interesting. I saw a video recently. A lot of Louisiana and New Orleans has that type of culture through and through. And I saw a video of a fella on Bourbon Street, and he was trying to convince, you know, some mid-20s kid to touch elbows with him. And does that resonate with you at all? So all the comments were saying that's how voodoo people get you to switch your destiny with theirs. And that's how they steal people's destinies. And so I always thought that was an interesting thing I need to remember. I'm never rubbing weenuses with anybody. This is mine. Whatever's happening at the end of this Rethink Tank Road is mine.
I never heard of that.
I ain't touching no bows. Yeah. So it's interesting because I think, yeah, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, I want to learn a little bit of the lens you see the world through. But like, when I look at this world, not just the realm we play in, but like the world of voodoo and the people that I don't want to say believe it, because I do think they live it. I think there's some overlap. Like, yeah, maybe sprinkling, you know, monkey ash on something isn't going to change it, but I do think they. Go ahead.
I can give you is like, I have friends that did bad stuff, and they will like get their jewelry, mostly rings, and bring it to this guy. And every time their ring, I think it's the temperature changing or something. Every time the ring starts squeezing their finger and they feel it, they will get up and leave. And I have just once, where someone got up and leave, and something bad happened at this where they were at. But out of that one, I didn't hear many, but they all swear by it. So I don't really believe in it. I just live by God. I live by my faith.
Hey.
All that extra dark stuff.
Well, and you open an interesting consideration. Like, for me personally, I'm with you. I live in a spiritual world, but my eye is by the beacon of God. That being said, I do think this world, this voodoo world, that I think the satanic world rolls, you know, in parallel to it, in tandem with it. You know, Ouija boards, the extraterrestrial, ghostly, they all kind of run parallel with each other. And I think all of that is an adversary to the light. You know, there's the dark and the light. And I think, you know, I think that's kind of like God's whole projection is, and you see it, not to bring it to Star Wars, but you see it in that. You can't, it's all or nothing. Like, you have any bit of that evil force in you, and it'll totally consume you. And so, you know, this world that I do think is kind of run by Satan, the media, the entertainment, social media, all this stuff that's like, be your own God, be your own, live your truth. No, like, literally all of God's message is to be like, have some restraint, live by a moral code, not your moral code, my moral code. And so we're in this tug and pull of a world that tells you to be your own God, be your own writer of your own reality, and disregard any other commandments or moral compass. At the same time, that's in direct contrast with really the only moral compass that has been given to us. So it's just an interesting thing because I do believe it exists. Like, I have a hard time believing that. I think it's just there's a spiritual realm and we really don't know much about it. Some of it is lost in just traditional hubbubaloo. We've always done it, so we continue to do it. And some of it's real, some of it works. And I'm kind of ignorant to that whole realm because I feel as though it is a contradiction to the other side of the spiritual realm that I subscribe to. So it's not that I don't think it exists. I think it's in conflict with.
But these dudes go to church.
But a different church. You know, is it right? Like, it's not
and play Bibles on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, we grew up as Christian, but they do this because they do bad things, so they want, I guess, the evil entity to protect them as well. That's the best way I could see it. My only experiences with that is I had to bring a ring to a guy. When I went to his yard, there's a bunch of chicken bones in the yard, roosters running around, right? I flew down from America. I had to bring a ring for it to get blessed for a homie. I brought it. The guy was like, looked at me. He literally said, "Stop worrying. Your dad will be all right." My dad was in jail. I don't know how he knew this or whatever. I don't know if my homie told him or what, but I was freaked out. I was like, what, 20? I was freaked out. I just sat quiet. He did his thing, went in the room, did his thing. I took the thing in the bag. I never touched it myself because I was told not to touch it, and just brought it back. And that's my only, but God is my savior.
That's right. We ended with that.
Dude,
but dude, I resonate with those things. What are you gonna say, Will?
I would have heard him say that to me about my dad. I would just been like, mind your own business.
Don't say that.
Nobody asked you. I asked you to do this, man.
You don't want to be cursed by the chicken bone.
The American in me would have been like, oh, buddy, not now. Not now. I came here for a service. Thank you.
Bless the ring, dude.
Bless the ring.
Bless the ring.
Bless the ring. You don't need to know my problems. You don't need to tell me about my problems. It's not even my ring.
And yeah, but again, those things resonate with you. At the same time, like you said, you know, it could have been your homie said something to him before, or he knew a little bit about you and he knew what strings to pull. But at the same time, we know there is a whole like corporate market on grifters and scammers who pretend to be what do they call them? Those people that could see like ghosts and
Miss Cleo. I'm Miss Cleo. Call Miss Cleo now.
Oh, like mediums and such like that. Yeah.
So you've got people that claim themselves to be mediums. You know, the CIA did a lot of experiments to show that autistic people do have some telepathic abilities. And that's kind of why they keep throwing vaccines in your body to keep making mutant people to see how much we can make this shit work. At the same time, exactly, we're making X babies.
I thought that was the microplastics.
You know, frogs are gay. But on the flip side, let's flip it over. Damn it. Get to the other side. Ricky's geeking me out. Damn it. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? The voodoo.
Bless the ring.
Oh, so I'm going to say, I do think some of this stuff has some bearing on reality. And I think mediums are exploiting something that probably does have some reality to it. There probably are some people that have something that's a little extra, probably not to the extent where they can see your grandma, but there are people exploiting it, and they're so good at, you know, playing their charisma and schmoozing the room that it is so convincing. People believe that magical power exists. I want to get to Nilette's comment here. She says, my sister's best friend is a palm reader. I let her do it once, and I asked God for forgiveness for 2 years afterwards. Never again. Oh, my mom's sister's best friend. But it's just like, it's crazy that like, it is true. I do think these things exist, but there is a deep acknowledgement that it is the antithesis to the light of love that we should really be
Well, it's
following.
like
But I also love Ricky's laughing. He's like, I've been hearing about this shit forever. That palm reader's been haunting my life.
Well, it's like, you ever see those shows where a guy will be like, hey, is anybody, like, it's a giant crowd, and he'll be like a medium or whatever. He's like, has anybody lost a loved one? And someone recently, and someone will be like, oh, I have. And it's like, he's just saying generic stuff, like anything, like someone sure probably could relate to that. And then he's like, did their name start with a J? No, it was an M. M, yes. Is his name Matt? And they'll just kind of like go in like that. And it's like, he has no idea what he's talking about.
Right. So let's land this plane circling the drain of the manga prediction. So the future I saw, and it's already a comic title that, you know, claims to be able to predict the future. Then they have this comic issue that comes out and says massive disasters in March of 2011, opening the door to 30 days of like, please, just a disaster happened. Told you it was gonna happen. Biggest earthquake, 9.0 magnitude. Told you. But here's what's funny. If you're a super fan of this comic book, you're like, yeah, this is the superpower lady. She's the greatest. You are eating this, spoonfuling it. Yes, I buy it. I live it. She's our queen. For those people, I don't think there's any convincing them. But for the rest of us, are we going to sit here and actually believe there's any ounce of predictability here? Should we be concerned? But
No.
like Ricky said, he's canceling his trip. So wrapping thoughts, Ricky, what do you make of the story, and close out your point?
I really would love to know, like, what's her percentage? What's she shooting for? Like, she said March.
What's she shooting for?
He happened in March. You know what I mean?
July.
Like, how many predictions? You know, I've been doing a little more homework on this, because if she hitting a good percent, like 7, if she hitting 7%, bruh, y'all should cancel y'all. That's good enough for me. So that should be good enough for y'all. But hey, I don't deal with the extra realm. I live on Earth. I follow God, and that's all I need in my life. All right, that's my
Amen
rapid.
to that. No, amen to that. And what's interesting is you're right. I got to do a little bit more research here, because when they say, you know, the future I saw had other predictions as well, like the death of Princess Diana and singer Freddie Mercury. How? Like, what were those predictions?
Yeah,
like,
she said that in 1999. It's like, oh, you mean it happened already?
But what was it? Was it a character that had a mustache and was gay, and they're like, told you Freddie Mercury was going to die? Or was it, here's Freddie Mercury and this is going to happen? Was it a pretty blonde European princess and we're like, hey, that's Princess Diana? Or was it like, Princess Diana is going to, it says it predicted the COVID-19 pandemic. How? Like, you're saying you're the first story to ever acknowledge that a pandemic would shake the human race. So, you know, like Ricky said, I think you got to pull back the sheets a little bit to realize, you know, oh, it's just a wizard behind a curtain. It's not a big deal. But maybe there's something to be investigated here. I think all the chips lie in what happens in July. And you can bet your sweet candy butt we'll be here August 1st or whatever the first Tuesday is in August. And we're going to be telling you, did she get it right? Maybe before then, maybe in the middle of July, we'll be like, oh my God, Japan has sunk into the ocean. And we'll be reporting to it we'll reporting it here for you. Katarina, do you have any wrapping thoughts on the subject?
Well, no, not really. I just think that they, you know, people are always going to give these predictions, and I kind of just think it's funny to like entertain them.
Right.
Even if I don't always believe. But yeah, and I'm really happy to see like everybody kind of like shedding light on God too.
Yeah.
So.
Cheers to that. Will, wrapping thoughts?
She's full of shit. She doesn't know a damn
Not
thing.
Katarina.
Why? What? Yeah, Katarina completely knows. The manga woman has no idea. She's clueless. Why couldn't she have written like Dragon Ball Z? Why couldn't she have been like, this is going to actually happen? That'd have been cool. I would have been like, this is sick. I hope it happens.
Will's been going Super Saiyan since I've known him, and he has yet to turn into a glowing
I'm
orb.
screaming into the void, and I just look like a crazy person. I'm not getting any powers here. But apparently something's going to happen in July, and it's going to be a tsunami because she said so, and she wrote it, and she wrote an illustration. It's so great. So great. Turn it into an anime. That's it. That's it.
Well, guys, I appreciate you joining us. We go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. The whole purpose of the live show is to get you all involved. So I appreciate you guys diving into the comments. I want to thank my good friend Ricky from Just Another Day TV. Ricky, talk to the folks. Tell them where they can find you.
I just got to say this. If we want someone that predicts something good, Cat Williams, as Nillette said.
He needs to be right. He needs to be drawing manga comic books.
But check me, Just Another Day TV, man. Just start streaming on Kick 2 days in a row. JAD TV. So check me out. We outside.
I love that. Definitely check our homie out on Kick. We're all taking over Kick. Silence over there running stuff. It's fantastic. So, guys, we appreciate you giving us your time. Like I said, we go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We've got all these different shows coming at you, from the Rethink Tank podcast to our live show to other shows on this channel. And then we also have our reactions channel, Rethink Actions, that you could find on YouTube and all the other platforms. That has new episodes every Sunday. And be sure to check those out because we have a blast. Wake up, have a cup of coffee with us, and have a little break from the politics and the chaos, and just have some laughs on a Sunday morning, like Sunday morning cartoons. That being said, guys, you can find all of our content in one central place, and that's at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. So I want to thank Nillette and everybody else who was in the comments, joining us, be a part of the dialogue. Like I said, that's the whole purpose of the live show. So thank you to you. And otherwise, we'll catch you next week. Peace.